Hey, what's up?
So I wanted to let you know, I did get a cost on that set.
Wait, Addy. Go off, crazy kid.
Michael McLaren writes and directs The Haunting of Cottonwood, and this is a low-budget haunted house movie. The story follows a family as the husband inherits a property from a great uncle, so they decide to move into this property only to learn that it needs some work doing on it, and there seems to be a hidden room within this house as well. Now, as the movie unfolds, we learn that this house may have somewhat of a dark past and may harbour a dark presence. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So, let's discuss. Now, as always, when we're talking about low-budget movies, we have to accept that the production value isn't going to be top-notch necessarily. With that in mind, let's talk about what I think works in this movie's favour. I like the concept of this hidden room, and I do think how it was discovered was quite smart. You know, the husband's kind of like measuring the house and stuff, and the math isn't quite mathing and everything, and this is how they ultimately discover this kind of this hidden room, which kind of leads further down the kind of the mystery, so to speak. So I actually thought that was quite good, and it fit quite well into the story. The story tries to have somewhat of a mystery about what's actually kind of happened and who might be involved and in what capacity and things like this. I will say I think on a production value, it's obviously quite cheap, but I do think the kind of the technical elements for the most part are fairly acceptable, and probably the way this movie is shot, the audio mixing and things like this, it all seems to a reasonable standard for the clearly low budget movie that this actually is. And I think there's some interesting things with some of the characters. Like, our husband is like a mega enthusiastic like dad and husband. He's just like so like overly enthusiastic, while his wife, the mother, is like massively neurotic. So there's just some interesting little character quirks here. I thought were, gave the characters at least some sort of difference and kind of personality, so to speak. Let's talk about though what does not work. Okay, so this is a cheap movie. It feels like a daytime TV movie is the best way I would describe it. It has that sort of look that you would see, and let me just say, we're not talking HBO here. We're talking some type of Hallmark style kind of channel, like a cheap version of Hallmark, like a daytime version of this. It's kind of like a very cheap looking film. I think, like I said, the technical elements are as best as you can probably get for such a low budget, but the general feel of it just has this kind of like dreary daytime soap aesthetic to it. The acting, I'll be kind and say it's mixed, but let me tell you, the lows are very low. I won't really point out from whom necessarily, but yeah, the kind of the acting is mixed. But I think the dialogue also doesn't help. There is some clunky dialogue here. So it's, you have not great acting mixed with bad sort of dialogue sometimes. The story is a tad over convoluted, I would say, and most of the story kind of plot points are delivered by exposition rather than kind of, elements that we see on screen, if this makes sense. So it's a lot of people talking and telling us things about what's happened, or this has happened in the past and things like this, and we'll discover this and someone's going to tell me this clue and things. So there's just lots of exposition in this movie rather than a sort of more of a visual kind of storytelling, so to speak. But what about those visuals? What about the ghostly visuals? Well, they're kind of low tech, let me just kind of say that. It's just like some contact lenses and stuff like that, and that's kind of your ghost or possessed person or something. Yeah, it's really not by any means you would call it a scary movie. It is quite, yeah, it's quite plain in regards to that. I've mentioned I'll give props to a lot of the technical elements here because but judging by the rest of this movie, it's clearly such a low budget film. I think it's surprising how some of the kind of the technical elements seem relatively proficient, but there is also some elements here that do stick out. There's a little bit of rough editing. I've put like a rough audio edit at the beginning of this this review to demonstrate. There's a couple of like things like that, and a couple of elements here. I think, as I say, for the most part, I'll give credit to some of the more technical elements, but there are still a couple of ones here that are just a little bit on the kind of the rough side. And ultimately, this movie is just a little bit dull. I kind of quite like some of the kind of the character choices, but they seem a little strange at the same time, I have to say. There's some odd choices. Overall, this movie fails more than it wins. And there's very little for me to legitimately kind of say this is a good reason to watch this. The negatives massively outweigh the positives. So this is a missed opportunity. There's nothing really here that's going to say this is better than this film, or if you like this film, you should watch this. It's a 3 out of 10 for me. So yeah, it's not really a recommend this one. 3 out of 10. What were your thoughts? If you did, let me know. I'll look forward to seeing you next time.